Like, if they don't pick it up, my entire reverse FMA dream is just out the window. I'll look like a fool, private the video. None of you saw this. 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 Why is this happening? Why? I'm sure by now, even if you're not actively watching, you've at least heard secondhand that the Promised Neverland has made some, questionable changes to the story. And boy, does it hurt my feelings personally. Back when I made my prediction video, I was running on the assumption that nothing major would really change until, like, post Goldie Pond, even if they had to cut down on the length of the arc or something like that, but, nope. This train has no brakes in the worst possible way, and it's left both manga fans and some anime-only fans confused and bothered and just kinda let down by what should have been a smooth adaptation of an incredibly well-written arc. Unfortunately, the viewership and community buzz have been reflecting that disappointment in the unexpected changes, both in Western communities and the Japanese community. We've gone off the rails completely by episode 4, and we're already on an entirely original story. Not the main story with original filler, like an entirely different timeline where completely new things are happening, and I think 60 named and fleshed out characters have just been axed, removed. And it sucks. That is a lot. We've also jumped like 70 chapters in a single episode, which is like... Every time I live complain during an episode on Twitter, manga readers ask what's going on, and anime-only fans ask if they should just give up and read the manga instead. So I figured today I'd give you guys a rundown of what's happened so far compared to the manga, and give anime-only fans a spoiler-free preview of what they're missing in hopes of giving you guys that read Goldie Pond, please I'm begging you push. So there's one question that I get basically every single time I post about it, and that is, where do I pick up if I ended at season 1 and just want to read? If you want to pick up where season 1 ended, start with chapter 38. Obviously, I'd recommend people start from the beginning, but for what it's worth, that was adapted pretty faithfully, so you can easily just hop in at chapter 38. So with episode 1, I was pretty on board with the changes. They made sense, and removing those things didn't really affect the story too much. The first foe that the kids encounter in the manga is the vampire tree, and they learn some of those survival basics, but 2 chapters later, we've met up with where the anime is, and we're on the same track, so. They encounter those same demon pursuers, and it mostly plays out the same, but things start to divert when they start learning all of those skills with Sanju and Mujika in episode 2. This is also where those distant alarm bells started jingling in my head, but I chose to ignore it. In the manga, Sanju tells them of the promise, teaches them how to use weapons, and takes Emma out to learn how to kill for food. Manga Sanju also tells them about the different farms, including the awful conditions at the mass-produced ones. In the anime, Sanju doesn't talk about those mass production farms, but he does teach Emma how to kill demons. This is way sooner than it happens in the manga. Originally, when Emma finds out, it's in a really intense situation, and it barely saves her. Still underground, the anime skips a very important drop when Mujika hands over the amulet. She whispers in Emma's ear, "Search for the 7 walls." There was also no mention of earlier between the two of them in their demon language, which was, in my opinion, a really exciting clue plant. At the end of their encounter in the manga, Sanju also casually drops the fact that there's more than one promise. That's kind of a big deal, and I hope they have time to explain that soon, and that we don't, like, only have one promise this time or something. I don't know. Moving this stuff around isn't, like, catastrophic or anything. Oh no, catastrophic comes later. Don't worry. But Mujika bringing out for the first time since the early escape arc, and this mysterious 7 walls creates the first new long-running mystery in a while, and the anime really feels like it's missing that right now. My original guess here was that Sanju and Mujika would definitely return in the anime. In the manga, this is the last we see of them until we're nearing the final arc, but the ED is nearly entirely them, and they're in the OP with the kids jumping towards the what could that be? And there's also a lot of promo material around them. It would be really strange to have this just be the end of our encounters with them until next season, so yeah. And then in both the manga and the anime, the remaining trip to the bunker is basically the same. Mid-episode 3, which is matching up with chapter 52, page 14, can you tell I'm feeling sour about it, is where the anime officially parts ways and says, peace out, we're doing our own thing. And wow, does it suck as a manga reader. The kids start exploring the shelter the same way across the manga and the anime. The tension is really high. We know how things go in the series when things get dark and quiet and the sound effects are the loudest thing we have. Emma slowly opened that unmarked door, and in the manga we were greeted by the single best cliffhanger since the escape arc. Hugo! Another human who is definitely not 12 years old, right after Sanju had just said he'd never seen another human around. And what do we get in the anime? Oh, where is he? Where is he? When they showed those moldy cookies and that empty, uncracked teacup, oh my god. Geoff can attest to the fact that I literally yelled, "What the fuck?" out loud. Like, actually. It's terrible. Not an empty cookie jar because he was somewhere else in the shelter, or no cookie jar because he was somewhere else in the shelter. Moldy cookies, empty, unbroken teacup, and a dust-covered book with a very out-of-character, uplifting message. And wait a second, that's not the same wall that they have in the manga. At this point, for what it's worth, I was still in denial over on Twitter. I mean, there was still next episode, right? I'm going to quickly run through some of the parts of the manga that are missing, but the whole point of this video is that I want people to read it on their own. So I'm not going to sit here and go through it page by page and tell you guys exactly what happens, but I do want anime only fans to at least kinda understand what they're missing out on and why manga fans just won't shut the heck up about this. So in the manga, we do not have any time to process Yugo or what's going on because right away he becomes hostile. Just as soon as everybody's reached the destination, there is a very real threat of getting thrown back into danger until Emma defuses it with grace. Yugo, plagued by a tiny dash of PTSD, gives them some alone time to explore the shelter the same way they did in the anime. Do you see why maybe we still had a little bit of hope that he was coming? A little bit. In the manga, like I said, the wall in Yugo's room is very, very different. And this was the nail in the I hate this coffin, for me at least. There is a very distinct lack of the word poachers. Oh, hold on, let me circle it just in case you missed it. It's that right there. You know, the whole premise of Goldie Pond, not there. Side note to sell you guys on the manga, I love this room. Even with the painful low quality that they provide on the Shonen Jump app, I have spent so long taking this space in. The "someone help me," "stay with me forever," "liar," "please keep holding my hand." There's so much storytelling in this room alone. Oh, I miss Yugo already. The kids work things out with Yugo, sort of. And them settling in is, like I said, pretty similar. In both the manga and the anime, they find secret rooms, but they're very different. An armory with an Emma-sized bazooka hits a little different than some empty tunnels. They also find that same Minerva letter, but there is a very, tiny line missing from that. I'll get to that, though. The anime drops the recorded Minerva phone call super early. Right away, we find out that Minerva's name is James Rattray, and that he's got these supporters out there, and that they need to type the word future into the pen. Now, here's the thing. Future points them to D100, not A0863 like Minerva's manga letter. Then, suddenly, in the anime, we get a montage, and the bunker is raided by random people with guns, and they escape, and there's a time skip, but only a year time skip? This is where things get confusing for everybody. We are moving way too quickly with not enough time to explain anything, and not really in that mysterious way that we had in the first arc. Let's back it up a bit, back to the manga. After mere days in the shelter, Emma and Ray set out with Yugo to A0863. That's a mouthful. Goldie Pond. They go through an insanely stressful trip, filled with all of those classic "please free me from the suspense" Shirai moments. And then we're in Goldie Pond. Yes, finally, that thing that manga fans, myself included, have not shut up about for ages. And for good reason, too. I maintain myself that Goldie Pond is one of the most incredible arcs in recent shonen manga history. To avoid spoilers, it is a secret hunting ground for the Demon Elite. It's mostly kids from one farm, not escapees, but Yugo and his family do end up there per Minerva's letter. That's why the wall says poachers. It's literally a child's safari. And holy shit, is it a wild ride. We got a full new cast of characters, including an extremely important one that sent week-to-week manga fans into a frenzy panic, because we haven't seen Norman yet. We also finally get evil demons with names that matter. Most importantly, Luvis, who's cemented his way into my top 5, that's one, 5 favorite villains. He's cunning and terrifying, unpredictable, and insanely smart. Goldie Pond as an arc is just tragic and full of gore and violence, and the writing is so incredible for all of the characters. I don't want to spoil how things happen, but a lot of things do in a lot of different directions, and mixed in there is that phone call that we already saw in the anime. In the manga, the phone call happens inside Goldie Pond. Emma and a completely new character named Lucas are the ones to get the call, and it's got mostly the same information from Minerva. But Manga Minerva also mentions for the second time searching for the 7 walls. And like I said, we still don't know where Norman is in the manga. Him appearing in episode 4 really makes 0 sense for any manga reader's point of view. So I'm going to clarify the timeline a bit and put it on screen for you. So season 1 ends at chapter 37. Episode 3 is chapter 52, episode 4 is chapter 72, and episode 5 is chapter 103. So season 1 had 12 episodes for 37 chapters, followed by 5 episodes for 66 chapters. So yeah, that's where we are so far. Before we move on to that spoiler-filled section where I make a guess that has way less confidence than my last video, I want to wrap things up for anime onlys. If you're watching now, I would say stick with it, I guess, assuming you're enjoying it. If you feel like you're confused or it's moving too fast and it's not holding you like season 1, just drop it and go to the manga. You can read it on the Shonen Jump app for $2 a month. This isn't sponsored by them. I actually have big time beef with the quality of the scans there, but I can't argue that $2 per month for all of Jump's most popular manga is a great deal. And while I think the physical versions are way better because you can really appreciate Demizu's artwork, that $2 a month makes every single chapter available to you, so it's way more accessible. I'm gonna say that everybody needs to read the manga either way, but if you only have the option for one right now, I'd say go read the manga and wait out to see where season 2 goes. At this point, it is more like FMA 2003 versus the manga, you know? I know some people, myself included, gave the manga flack as we were reading it, but it really is a completely different experience as a binge read than a stressful week-to-week read. It's far from perfect, but Goldie Pond is, so please give it the reading time it deserves, at least until the end of that arc. Also, if holding out hope for the anime is the route you want to take, Geoff just posted a more positive video about how he's coping with all of this change, and it's anime safe with a warning before the manga spoiler section, so yeah, head on over there and check that out. Onwards to my spoiler-filled prediction. So, I think they're gonna completely cut Goldie Pond. I don't think we're gonna encounter Yugo or Lucas or any of those Goldie Pond kids except maybe Adam from Lambda. Here's why. I mentioned it earlier, but there is nothing that points towards Goldie Pond existing, nothing that acknowledges it at all in the anime. Not even like a little reference to it on the wall left by Yugo to imply that they'd be mentioning it in the background. Going to Goldie Pond would also cut out any of the time from Mom chasing them, which is new to the anime and I think gonna replace that threat. I hate to admit it because I really adore the Glory Bell kids at Goldie Pond, but the story can easily exist without them. Once they meet up with Norman and all of the Lambda kids, the Goldie Pond kids don't really serve a purpose at all. My original idea earlier was that the Grace Field arc kids would maybe get thrown into Goldie Pond together, but now I don't think that's gonna happen. If it is there, I think it's gonna be long gone, sunk in by Norman instead of Emma. In the physical volume that I didn't write down, but I'm gonna put it on screen here, inside the cover is an alternate illustration of Norman alone on that Goldie Pond roof with a single balloon. And Shirai has an author's note pointing out that parallel between Emma on the front and Norman on the back. I spent a very long time over the last few months trying to make sense of that when I was mulling over all of those other dropped mysteries, and now with the direction that the anime is going, Norman doing Goldie Pond kind of makes sense. Maybe, what do I do with... Again, I am way less confident than I was last video. I don't think this fully makes sense. I haven't 100% fleshed it out, but it's the best I can think of, you know? So how would Norman do Goldie Pond? In the anime, they meet him insanely early, like over a year early, and he looks so much younger. Look at these next to each other. Look at them. Maybe he was sent to Goldie Pond instead of Lambda, or he broke out of Lambda earlier. Either way, he has not endured the same crazy shit that he endured in the manga. The same way Zazie is 5 years old and has the body of a teenager, whatever Norman went through in the manga aged him mentally and physically, and I don't think that happened in whatever alternate timeline shenanigans they're pulling in the anime. So yeah, Goldie Pond was destroyed January 2046 in the manga, but in the anime the kids are still at the bunker at that time. Either Norman went to Goldie Pond and sunk it, or they're just pretending it doesn't exist altogether. I feel like there's a huge domino effect from just axing it all together, but who knows where this is going. anymore. I sure don't. As for Yugo, operating on the idea that Goldie Pond isn't a thing anymore, I think he's probably dead, along with the Glory Bell family. That, or there's like a tiny chance that maybe they could throw him in as a wild card with Norman and his crew. Obviously, he got separated from his family in the anime and he's still completely tormented by it, but that note left behind in the book isn't one written by somebody who watched his entire family get slaughtered for sport. Don't give up, I'm going to the human world. Goldie Pond shook the hope and the willpower out of Yugo. It completely destroyed his belief in Minerva, and he no longer gave a shit about going to the human world anymore, if it even existed. When he was about to, Yugo himself, he didn't say that he was gonna go to the human world, he just said he'd be meeting up with his family soon. I think there's a good chance that none of them went to Goldie at all, and instead they died on their journey to find the human world. Then there's Yugo, who maybe stayed behind out of fear or got separated and went back to the bunker. Either way, a major theme of the Promised Neverland is that nobody gets left behind and that there is endless power in relying on each other for hope. Yugo, abandoning his family to die while they were on some kind of adventure, still fits with that. Originally, when he went to, Yugo himself, he knew that his whole family was dead and he had nothing but years of PTSD. In the anime though, I think he set out into the world alone earlier instead of just eating himself, because he still had that hope that his family was out there. He's haunted by the regret of being alone, but he hasn't fully lost it yet, as evident by that still-tacked teacup and his very clean living conditions compared to the manga. Whatever happened to Yugo, though, happened a while ago. The book that he had written in was completely covered in dust. All of the plants that he had growing were just dead, and he hadn't eaten anywhere near as much out of the pantry as he did in the manga. The Minerva letter in the anime was also very clearly placed to be found, as opposed to the manga where they had found it hidden under a book in the reference room. It kind of stands out to me that in the manga the letter is ripped at the top, and they're like, look, we know you opened this, whereas in the anime it is not ripped, but they've had a lot of animation errors happening, so that might just be laziness or forgetfulness. I don't want to say laziness because, you know. Have I rambled enough? Because I feel like I've kind of rambled enough. I have endless feelings about the Promised Neverland and thoughts about where I think this is going and where I feel like the manga was supposed to go. But to give you a summary of my predictions so far, I feel like I can't repeat this enough. I am not 100% confident in this. I do not want to private this video. But I think Sanju and Mijuka will be playing a really major role and probably filling in those information holes that Luvis has in Goldie Pond, which have probably just been removed. Yugo. Isabella, most likely aided by Peter Rattray, will be taking the spot as our villain, hunting them. And the Glory Bell kids at Goldie Pond just don't exist. And Goldie Pond will be at best a flashback that Norman dealt with and picked up Yugo along the way. Or Yugo is just dead, but I really don't want to accept that. Also, Norman didn't go through that experimental hell that he did in the manga because he got out sooner. So I can't help but wonder if he's still going to want to roll with that whole genocide thing. I can't see him being anywhere near as sneaky or untrustworthy or arguably immoral as he was in the manga without those years of suffering to harden him. But then again, they also dropped that immoral, untrustworthy thing in the manga, so maybe they're just doing that here as well. I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it. I'm sad about this. The end.